The world entered June 2009 with an unshakable faith in modern technology. Aviation was experiencing its golden age, a time when flying felt as routine as taking a bus. Among the newest and most sophisticated members of the skies was the Airbus A330, an engineering marvel that was considered more of a flying computer than a simple aircraft. It was designed to be pilot-proof. It could fly itself, monitor its own errors, and correct human mistakes before they even happened. For the passengers of Air France Flight 447, traveling from the vibrant shores of Rio to the lights of Paris, that night was supposed to be a triumph of this very perfection. On board, there were 228 souls, representing 32 different nations. Business travelers closing deals, families returning from long-awaited holidays, young students chasing new lives in Europe. Every one of them was certain that the 200-ton mass of carbon fiber and metal beneath them would carry them safely over the violent storms and the vast, empty oceans. No one, not a single person on that aircraft, was aware that a tiny physical flaw was about to trigger a catastrophic chain reaction in the cockpit. 2 hours into the flight, the aircraft entered the Intertropical Convergence Zone. This is a place where the atmosphere becomes a battlefield, a chaotic region near the equator where warm, moist air rises to create massive storm towers that can reach 50,000 feet into the sky. Captain Marc Dubois, a veteran with thousands of hours, had retired to the crew rest cabin for his scheduled break, leaving the cockpit in the hands of 2 first officers. It was a standard procedure, but tonight the sky was anything but standard. Outside, the temperature plummeted to -40 degrees, and the plane was flying through a thick soup of supercooled water droplets. In that absolute darkness, at 35,000 feet, the eyes of the aircraft were suddenly blinded. The pitot tubes, the vital, finger-sized sensors that measure airspeed, froze solid within seconds. At precisely 2:10, the aircraft's brain became confused. Without speed data, the computers gave up. The autopilot disconnected with a single, haunting chime, handing the control of a massive, heavy jet back to human hands in the middle of a pitch-black, turbulent storm. The pilots were suddenly flying blind, with no clear idea of how fast or how high they truly were. Panic, as history has shown us, is the greatest enemy of logic. The junior pilot, overwhelmed by the sudden chaos and the buffeting of the storm, made a fatal, instinctive mistake. Fearing the plane was diving, he pulled back on the side stick, hard. He pointed the nose of the aircraft toward the stars, trying to climb away from the danger. But at that altitude, in thin air, this was a death sentence. As the plane struggled to climb, it lost its vital forward momentum. And then, the most terrifying sound in aviation began to scream through the cockpit. Stall. Stall. For 3 minutes and 30 seconds, the aircraft didn't fly. It fell. It was no longer a sophisticated machine. It was a falling stone. The pilots, trapped in a loop of confusion and sensory overload, could not understand why the plane was shaking or why the alarms wouldn't stop. Even as the captain rushed back into the cockpit and realized the nose was too high, it was too late. The law of gravity had taken over. 30,000 feet, 20,000, 10,000. The Atlantic Ocean was rushing toward them at 30 meters per second. The final words captured on the voice recorder were a desperate realization. "Damn it, we're crashing. This can't be true." Followed by an instant, absolute silence. The impact was so violent that the aircraft disintegrated upon hitting the water. For 2 long, agonizing years, the wreckage lay 4,000 meters deep, hidden in a graveyard of silt and darkness among underwater mountains as rugged as the Himalayas. Now, in 2026, we look back at Flight 447 not just as a tragedy, but as a turning point that redefined the relationship between man and machine. Because of those 228 souls, every pilot in the world today undergoes rigorous training to survive a high-altitude stall. The sensors have been redesigned. The software has been hardened, but the most enduring lesson remains. No matter how advanced the machine, no matter how smart the computer, the final line of defense is always the human heart and the human mind. Aviation is a book of rules written in blood. Flight 447 is one of its most painful, yet most instructive chapters. Those on board are not forgotten, because their memory lives on in the silence of every safe cockpit and in every successful landing made around the world today.